Sophie Cunningham suffered a right knee injury on this play, and despite the potential severity of the injury, a big conversation point around this is that the WNBA is not doing enough to protect the safety of their players.
The WNBA is actively allowing its most valuable team to be systematically dismantled, and Sophie Cunningham's gruesome knee injury is all the proof you need. This wasn't just a random unlucky play in a physical game. This was a breaking point. A moment that exposed a dangerous pattern of aggression aimed squarely at the Indiana Fever. Fans are watching in horror, realizing that the war against Caitlyn Clark has now claimed its first major casualty, and the league itself seems to be doing absolutely nothing to stop it.
It's very, very sad and unfortunate what has happened to Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham, let's be clear here. Sophie Cunningham was targeted. Let's be very, very clear here.
It happened in a horrifying flash, a moment of sickening, unnatural motion that brought the entire game to a screeching halt. The Indiana Fever's Sophie Cunningham, a player known for her relentless energy and fiery competitiveness, crumpled to the hardwood after a collision with Bria Hartley of the Connecticut Sun. But this wasn't a typical basketball fall, it was a complete structural failure. The way her knee buckled inward was a sight that made viewers physically recoil, an image you can't unsee. Her scream of pain was audible, a raw and desperate sound that cut through the noise of the arena. The immediate reaction from everyone on the court, teammates and opponents alike, told the entire story. This wasn't a minor sprain or a momentary tweak. This was the kind of injury that ends seasons and potentially careers. The fast-paced, high-energy game instantly froze, replaced by a heavy, anxious silence as medical staff rushed onto the floor. But as Cunningham was carried off, a chilling realization began to ripple through social media. This wasn't just a random, unlucky play. For those who had been paying attention, it was a terrifying case of history repeating itself.
She is so effective down low, and she can get a lot of people in foul trouble.
This is where the story shifts from a tragic accident to something far more sinister. This wasn't the first time Sophie Cunningham had been taken out of a game after a brutal encounter with the Connecticut Sun. Incredibly, it was the second time this very season. The same player, injured against the exact same team. Twice. The first time it was a nasty ankle injury that sidelined her. You could perhaps write that off as a fluke, an aggressive but unfortunate consequence of a heated rivalry. Fans were angry, but the incident was largely dismissed as part of the game. But for it to happen again, the same team, the same pattern of overwhelming physicality, that's where the benefit of the doubt evaporates. For thousands of fans watching, this wasn't a coincidence. It was a smoking gun. The odds of this happening by chance are almost non-existent, and the narrative online instantly shifted. The Indiana Fever, the most watched and most scrutinized team in the league, suddenly looked less like a professional basketball team and more like a designated target. The conversation was no longer about basketball strategy, it was about survival, and at the center of it all was the player who delivered the devastating blow.
Game, Sophie Cunningham went down. It did not look good. I heard her saying no from the court. It was heartbreaking. I am hoping, this is the hope, that it is more of like a bruised knee type thing. There aren't many updates as of yet, but she will be getting an MRI, so hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow. But judging by the way that the WNBA, expands on injuries, it's probably not going to be a lot, but my guess is that she's...
To truly understand the explosion of fan fury, you have to look at Bria Hartley, the player who collided with Cunningham. Hartley is not an unknown role player who made a clumsy mistake. She has a reputation, one she has cultivated over years in the league, as one of its most aggressive and controversial figures. She consistently plays on the very edge of the rules, a style that often spills over into what many consider dirty. Fans immediately flooded social media with receipts, bringing up her checkered past, most notably a notorious incident where she was ejected from a game for yanking another player, Angel McCautry, by the hair. Her history is filled with moments that make you question her intent. This wasn't a rookie getting lost on the court. This was a seasoned veteran with a well-documented track record of questionable plays. So when fans saw it was Hartley who had barreled into Cunningham's knee, they didn't see an accident. They saw a player living up to her reputation, another notch on her belt. Whether the play was intentionally malicious or just recklessly indifferent, the outcome was the same, and it pointed to a much larger, more troubling dynamic at play.
My goodness.
While the spotlight is on Cunningham's injury, the aggression from the Connecticut Sun and other teams isn't truly about her. It's about the seismic cultural shift that has rocked the WNBA to its core, the Caitlyn Clark effect. Clark's arrival has been a commercial miracle for the league, bringing unprecedented media attention, sold-out arenas, and millions of new fans. But inside the league, it has also bred resentment. Her fame has painted a colossal target on her back, and by extension, on her entire team. The Indiana Fever are no longer just another opponent. They are a symbol, and every game they play is a physical gauntlet. Opponents seem determined to deliver a welcome to the league message that feels less like healthy competition and more like a coordinated hazing ritual. The endless hard fouls against Clark were just the beginning. Now teams appear to be sending a message by targeting her supporting cast. The logic is brutal. If you can't stop the superstar, you take out the players around her. The Fever aren't just playing basketball, they are enduring a season-long war of attrition. And the very people meant to be the arbiters of fair play, the ones responsible for maintaining order, seem to have completely abandoned their posts.
We're dealing with a right knee injury for Cunningham, and this is going to be contact. Of course, the player for Connecticut is going to fall into the outside of her right knee, and what that's most likely going to do, we can't exactly see her foot position down here, but I think what this is causing is a forced valgus load from the outside of Cunningham's knee, pushing it inward. If we back this up a little bit, initially you can see how her right foot is pointed forward, and so any sort of impact is going to cause a hyperextension, pushing the knee backwards. But then as the play continues here, it looks like she initially picks up that right foot. We can see it start to move a little bit. That's going to start to rotate her body so that now when the Connecticut player comes in and lands on her, the force is coming in from the outside of the knee and pushing it inward. What this is going to do is potentially cause a number of injuries to the inner medial side of Cunningham's knee from this forced external valgus.
The referees in the WNBA are not just having a bad season, they are actively enabling a culture of dangerous play that is now jeopardizing the league's future. Their officiating has been shockingly inconsistent and, at times, utterly baffling. A player can earn a technical foul for a sarcastic clap or for staring at an opponent for a second too long, yet a reckless, potentially career-altering play like the one on Cunningham barely warrants a whistle. This officiating paradox has created a toxic environment on the court. Players are learning that they can get away with almost any level of physical aggression as long as it's disguised as hustle. The officials have lost control of the game. They swallow their whistles on dangerous contact while simultaneously policing emotions, sending a clear message that they are more concerned with a player's attitude than with their physical safety. This failure isn't just a matter of missed calls, it's a dereliction of duty that has turned the court into a minefield, where the league's most valuable assets are one bad decision away from a season-ending injury. And this negligence isn't just bad for the players, it's a catastrophic business decision.
The video, but Sophie Cunningham was flat out targeted by a dirty player. And if y'all go to my video last night, you will see me saying, watch out for Bria Hartley because she's a dirty ass player. And boy, did it show up again today.
From a business perspective, the WNBA was just handed a winning lottery ticket. Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever have become a national phenomenon, a cash cow that is driving growth at an exponential rate. Ticket sales have skyrocketed, TV ratings are breaking records, and major sponsors are lining up to be part of the story. The league has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to solidify its place in the mainstream sports landscape. Yet, bafflingly, they are allowing that golden goose to be bludgeoned in plain sight. Allowing their most marketable players to be targeted and injured is the fastest and most effective form of self-sabotage imaginable. The millions of new fans who tuned in to watch Clark's incredible skill and the Fever's exciting rise didn't sign up for this. They didn't come to see a gladiator-style spectacle where the main event is waiting to see who gets carried off the court next. When these new fans see a star like Sophie Cunningham go down, and the league's response is a collective shrug, they see a broken, unwatchable product. You cannot build a brand when your most essential assets are being destroyed week after week. And what's worse, the incident has exposed an ugly double standard in how these players are treated. When Caitlyn Clark gets hip-checked or shoved to the ground, it becomes a national news story. Sports analysts dedicate entire segments to debating the foul. The media erupts with think pieces about the state of the league, and the outcry is immediate and intense. But when Sophie Cunningham, a crucial starter on the same team, is taken out with a season-ending injury, the reaction is noticeably muted. There are reports, of course, but the widespread outrage is missing. This selective protection reveals a disturbing hierarchy within the league and the media that covers it. It sends a message that only the number one star is worthy of defending, while her teammates are disposable. Fans see this hypocrisy clearly. They see a system that will rush to protect its biggest name, but will shrug when her supporting cast gets picked off one by one. This isn't just unfair, it's bad for the sport. It creates a toxic dynamic where only one player truly matters, and it validates the strategy of opponents avoid fouling the superstar and just take out everyone around her. Imagine being a player in the Indiana Fever locker room right now. Every time you step onto the court, you know you're not just playing against another team, you're entering a combat zone. You've seen your star rookie get relentlessly targeted, and now you've watched one of your veteran leaders get carried off the floor twice by the same opponent. The psychological toll of that must be immense. How can you play freely when you're constantly bracing for the next cheap shot or reckless collision? It forces players into a state of survival where they are more focused on protecting themselves than on executing the game plan. This isn't basketball, it's a war of nerves. The confidence and chemistry that a team needs to win are eroded by fear and uncertainty. The goal of the opposition is no longer just to win the game, but to break the team's spirit. And without any sign that the league will step in to protect them, the Fever are being left to fend for themselves in a battle they shouldn't have to fight. In the aftermath of this chaos, where has the WNBA's leadership been? Where is the statement from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert condemning the pattern of reckless play? Where are the fines or suspensions for repeat offenders? The answer is nowhere. The league's response has been a deafening silence. This leadership vacuum is perhaps the most infuriating part of the entire situation. By refusing to take a strong public stance, the league is implicitly condoning this behavior. It sends a message to every team that this level of physicality is acceptable, and it tells the Indiana Fever that they are on their own. Strong leagues protect their players, especially their stars and the teams that drive revenue. The NBA famously adjusted its rules to protect players like Michael Jordan and LeBron James. The NFL is constantly tweaking its rules to protect quarterbacks. The WNBA, however, seems content to let the market correct itself, even if it means its biggest assets are destroyed in the process. This inaction isn't just weak, it's a colossal failure of leadership. Whenever these incidents happen, the same tired excuse gets thrown around. It's just a physical league, but that argument is a lazy and dangerous deflection. Every professional sport is physical. The NBA is physical. The NFL is the definition of physical. The difference is that those leagues have drawn a clear line between toughness and recklessness. There's a difference between a hard-fought battle for a rebound and a player diving recklessly into an opponent's knees. There's a difference between a strong defensive stance and a blatant shove on an unprotected player. The WNBA is failing to enforce that line. What we are seeing isn't just physicality, it's a series of plays that show a blatant disregard for player safety. Using physicality as a blanket excuse for every dangerous play is an insult to the intelligence of the fans. They know the difference between tough basketball and a dirty hit. And right now, they're seeing far too much of the latter, and it's doing long-term damage that the league may not be able to repair. This crisis goes far beyond a single season or a single team. The WNBA is poisoning its own well for the future. Think about it from the perspective of a top-tier free agent. Would you want to sign with the Indiana Fever, knowing that doing so means you'll have a target on your back for the entire season? It could make it incredibly difficult for the Fever to build a championship contender around Clark. Now think bigger. What message does this send to the next generation of players? Parents of young, talented athletes are watching this unfold. Do they want their daughters entering a league that appears unwilling or unable to protect its players from career-threatening injuries? The WNBA is not just risking its current momentum, it's risking its future talent pipeline. A reputation for being a league where stars are not safe is incredibly difficult to shake. If the WNBA becomes known as the place where talent goes to get hurt, the entire foundation of its growth will crumble. Every great sports league needs villains. The bad boy Detroit Pistons of the late 80s, the New England Patriots dynasty. These teams create drama and sell tickets. The Connecticut Sun seems to be embracing this role, building an identity around being the toughest, most physical team in the league. And for a while it worked. But there's a fine line between being a villain and being a liability. When your team's reputation becomes synonymous with injuring opponents, you've crossed that line. The Sun are no longer just the tough team, they are becoming the dirty team. This isn't a sustainable model for creating compelling rivalries. A good rivalry is built on competitive fire, not on the fear that your star player might be carried off on a stretcher. By allowing the Sun to operate this way without consequences, the WNBA isn't fostering a healthy rivalry. It's cultivating a toxic one that threatens the health of its players and the integrity of the game. Amidst all the failures from the league office and the referees, there's another institution that has been conspicuously silent: the Women's National Basketball Players Association, the WNBPA. The entire purpose of a players' union is to advocate for the rights and safety of its members. Yet, as players across the league face increasingly dangerous on-court situations, the union's public response has been non-existent. Are they working behind the scenes? Perhaps, but their silence in the public square is deafening. They should be the loudest voice, demanding better officiating and stricter penalties for reckless plays. Their failure to publicly call for accountability adds another layer to this systemic breakdown. It leaves players feeling isolated and unprotected from all sides. From the league that markets them, the referees that officiate them, and even the union that is supposed to represent them. Perhaps the greatest danger in all of this is the message being sent to the millions of new fans Caitlyn Clark brought to the WNBA. These fans, many of whom are watching the league for the first time, are forming their initial impressions right now. And what are they seeing? They're seeing a league where the most exciting new team is treated like a punching bag, where star players are injured with alarming frequency, and where the officials seem powerless to stop it. This isn't the high-level, skillful basketball they were promised. For many, this will be their first and last season as viewers. They have no long-term loyalty to the league. Their allegiance is to exciting, fair competition. If the product they're being sold is a chaotic mess of injuries and controversy, they will simply change the channel. The WNBA is at risk of squandering the greatest opportunity in its history by alienating its new audience before they even have a chance to become loyal fans. The situation has become so dire that the most radical idea is now gaining traction among a frustrated and desperate fan base. Should Caitlyn Clark sit out the rest of the season? At first, the suggestion sounds absurd. Why would the face of the league, the player driving its entire economic boom, voluntarily step off the court? The logic, however, is born of pure protective instinct. Fans are arguing that if the WNBA is either unwilling or unable to protect its most valuable asset, then she must protect herself. Removing herself from the equation would be a tactical nuclear option. It would send a shockwave through the sports world, causing ratings to plummet, sponsors to panic, and forcing the league's front office into a full-blown crisis. It would be a catastrophic short-term blow, but it might be the only move powerful enough to force the WNBA to finally wake up and address the violent, reckless culture it is allowed to fester. It's a terrifying choice to have to consider, but it speaks volumes about how little faith is left. The league stands at a crossroads, with Sophie Cunningham's injury serving as the final brutal warning. What will it take for them to finally act? And will it happen before another star, or even the star, is the next to fall?